Hi, my name's Steve and welcome to another Mindbomb Training video. This time I want to take something a bit as a companion piece to the last video that I did recently about the new business ideas, new business ideas after lockdown. If you haven't seen the video, James, put the clip there and then you can have a look at that one. Might help make a bit more sense of this one. This time I want to speak to you about Think Like an Entrepreneur is the title that I've put to this, but it's just a bit of insight really, a bit of a look over the thought process of how entrepreneurs constantly are looking for different insights into whether it be new products or new business ideas, whatever it may be. I think there's a mindset that I think it's a learned thing that you can actually get into when you identify things, whether it's as an aside from reading an article about something else, or whether it's just a conversation that you have sparked an idea for something else. And I think there is an element of thinking like an entrepreneur. So yeah, here we go. It struck me that basically not everybody thinks the same way. I find myself constantly weighing up whether there's a different way I could do things, whether when I see a nice product, if there's something that I could do to add value. And the same with businesses. If you can actually see how a business is developed, it's great when you can see something going right, but also where you can actually see things that are maybe a shortfall, things that have gone wrong, that you think, how could you actually fix that? And I think that's just a constant thing that goes in the back of your mind. Maybe you don't actually realise, and I wanted to try and unpick that a bit, just to illuminate what the thought process is behind it. I suppose it really struck me about the electric vehicle charge points. To me, that was quite a mind-bomb moment. I didn't realise, maybe it's me that's missed it, but I didn't realise the potential market that there's going to be in just the charging points. It's a huge amount, and really the only thing that I could actually equate it to, the only similar thing, would be something like the take-up of mobile phones, you know, the smartphone market. And again, that's going to be a similar development. As technical improvements come through, then the EV charge point is going to follow the same path, I'm sure, as the smartphone market. Whether they'll actually become smaller, faster, cheaper, whatever it is, the likelihood is that the development will be very similar to the smartphone. I think it was actually that mind bomb sort of explosion moment that you actually all of a sudden realise that maybe not everybody is seeing things in the same way. And I took the idea from the inspiration that people like Bill Gates must have had when he was actually first creating the Windows software, or even Dyson with the ball concept. There's got to be that eureka moment that just stands out, and certain people will see the opportunity much more clearer and the way that the market might actually develop. So it's when that inspiration strikes that is the point, and also from there, that I want to actually talk a bit about today. So I tried to actually go back over the thought process. What I actually found myself doing was, firstly, you've got to have the inspiration. There's got to be that eureka moment, and I think you've just got to be open to it. So realise that it can actually strike at any time, whether it's just a conversation that sparks it, or whether it's just something you're actually reading or researching that actually triggers that initial inspiration. So even if that idea just comes as some sort of half-formed, not really thought through thing, just be open to it and acknowledge it for what it is. And then if it's a new idea, a new development, or a new product idea that comes to you, then maybe it's actually something that you can fit into your existing business, or that you can actually work in alongside what you're currently doing at the moment. And you know, that's great. If it's a new business idea, then fantastic. Some people seem to actually struggle to come up with all of the new ideas, but for me, it's more about how you actually evaluate them. The new ideas aren't the problem. It's actually how to then sift through them and make sure that what you actually spend your time on is then going to be worthwhile and realistic in the effort that you actually put into it. I think once you've actually gone through the process a few times, it becomes easier. Instead of becoming just fixated on one particular idea and putting all your effort into that, it's actually easy to keep a number of plates spinning at the same time, and you can actually have the ideas at different stages, whether some come to fruition or whether the plates actually spin and fall off. So you never actually see the thing through to fruition for whatever reason. And part of that, I think, is going from that immediate inspiration then through a phase that I've called evaluation. So all of it's done fairly quickly. It may even be a matter of a few hours, whereby you can actually run the initial idea through a funnel, if you like, and work out whether it's actually viable or not. So I found myself going through a checklist that's something like this. Basically, it starts from number 1 and goes down. I managed to come up with 10 things that I tend to think through when I'm trying to evaluate a new idea. So firstly, what does the product or business actually do? What problem does it resolve? And I think that's a big one. You've got to actually work out not only is it a good product, does it look nice and all that kind of thing, but what is the issue that it actually solves for people? And that has got to be an important one to start with. Second is going to be, what does the competition look like? You've got to have some idea of whether there's already people doing the same thing in the market. If they're established, what does that actually look like in terms of competition? Number 3, how big is the market? You've got to consider whether the idea or product that you're actually thinking of developing is going to be a very, very niche product, maybe something that, I don't know, maybe a person will only buy once in their lifetime. And if it's only a very cheap item, then it's going to be very difficult to actually make that as a viable proposition for a business. The next one I put down is, how much is the market growing? Does the idea that you have actually feed into something that is in a growing market already? Beware those that are in a declining market. It might be possible for some of the service businesses that I highlighted in the last video. The market overall may be in decline, but the truth is, if it's such a big market anyway, then you don't need to worry about that. You've just got to worry about your bit of it, and I don't think that's necessarily a problem. But if it's a growing market and a very new business, similar to the EV charge points, then it's only going to be for the better if you've got more new opportunities. Another part of the evaluation is, can I do this on my own, or do I actually need a team of people to be able to deliver the product or idea? And I think that one's a difficult one to answer initially, but you've got to have some idea of it. Even if there's a stage where you can start by doing it on your own, but some point down the line, maybe you're going to actually need a bigger business and a team of people to actually deliver it if it's going to properly come to fruition. Number 6, I put, is there a leverage on my return? And by this, I mean, can I actually make more than just the hours that I work? So instead of getting paid whatever it is these days, minimum wage to stack shelves, can I actually put the time in with the prospect of actually getting a much greater return? Can I actually get a leveraged return on the time that I put in? And I think understanding that is the key to actually unlocking some real value for a business. Number 7 is actually, can I add value? So is it possible to change the product design that you're thinking about just slightly so it becomes something unique or different or better? And then if that is done, can you add significant value to the solution that you're actually providing for people? And number 8, I actually put down, is there a future path for the development? So is there some way that the immediate idea feeds into a development longer term? So there might be several different versions of the product to come through, or there might actually be a branch that once you've got one product, it actually leads you into something else. So think about that, whether there's a future development as well, rather than just an immediate one-hit idea. Number 9, how quickly can I actually realise the plan? Is it going to be something that I've got to work on for 2 years before I actually see any return on it? Or is it going to be something, maybe one of the businesses that I highlighted, can I start window cleaning and can I start doing it next month? Do I just get some cards printed and start doing some advertising, speak to people, and just basically get out there and get on with it? So I think there's an issue of timescales that you've got to sift through in the evaluation to see whether it's worthwhile. And number 10, of course, how much is it going to take to, how much is it going to cost me to actually get the idea off the ground? Is there a lot of money needed up front? Am I going to have to make initial investment in some kind of tooling or prototyping of the product? Is there money involved, basically? If you look at the electric vehicle charge point idea, then you can see why it ticks most of those boxes. If you actually go through that evaluation process, there is actually a bonus point to the fact that the government is subsidising the EV charge points, and that's something that I haven't mentioned in the evaluation, but for me that probably turbocharges the idea. Means that the opportunity is going to develop much more quickly, and that should then translate into a better return and more rapid development for the business. So if the idea, if that initial inspiration stands up to this evaluation process that I've just been talking about, then you have to start to think about what plans you would need to then make that happen. So I'm not talking about a business plan at this stage. It can still all be done in your head. You don't only need to be thinking about this, but really you need to go through the kind of next steps, if you like. So again, considering the EV charge point idea, I come up with a list just to show the sorts of things that I was thinking about in doing that evaluation initially. So the first one I've put, how would I actually find the customers? So as a development, I think it would be a business-to-business sales team. Initially, I think the biggest return is going to be with the business-type customers. So places like hotels, meeting centres, anywhere where you get lots of people parking, basically, that are going to be there for a period of time, that you could actually start to introduce to the EV charge points. Second point, just again on the same theme, what about the installations? So how would I actually do that if I was going to pursue the business plan? And I think the answer is initially that you'd actually pursue it with subcontractors, so you're not going to employ lots of installers right across the country. But if you can start the sales, then the subcontractors can do the installations, and over a period of time you can actually build up your own network of installers. I think that would be the way to actually do that. Number 3, when I was thinking about this, one of the other aspects was geographically, where do you start? And I think instead of actually trying to come up with some kind of shotgun approach where you're starting right across the country, it makes sense to do this in a fairly targeted geographical area. So whether that be by county, even by town, wherever you're starting, but that way you can target the advertising better. Social media can actually be more closely targeted, and again, you're not spreading yourself too thin, running around all over the country. If you can actually target the local customers first, and basically create a test bed to see whether to bed everything in, see whether the thing actually works from the initial contact, sales, and then the installation. Once you've got that test bed in place, you can then spread it to the county, to the region of the country, and obviously then ultimately the plan would be to spread it nationwide or even further. If you can actually do that, then that's great for the business. The fourth item that I've highlighted in terms of the thought process I was going through is, what about the suppliers? What about the equipment? And I think as part of the business plan, you would have to actually contact all of the various people that are in the market at the moment and see who is willing to offer you the best trade terms, and try and negotiate the deals so that you can then present that to the end customer, so that you can go to the businesses and say, look, this is what we can offer, and actually present them with a solution. So again, it would be something that you'd have to do yourself initially, but there's no real reason to have all of those discussions and then maybe it doesn't follow anywhere. If you can't actually get the deal, maybe that's what actually stops the business before it goes into a particular dead end, if there isn't an opportunity for the supply. But I suspect there's enough people in that industry now and they're all going to be looking for distributors, supplier arrangements, and I think it would be a very good opportunity to be having those negotiations with all the different existing suppliers and potential suppliers as well for the future. The fifth point that I picked out as the part of the thought process was, what would you actually need to get started? What we're talking about to make the phone ring and for you to actually start getting appointments and talking to customers. And in the case of the EV charge point one, I don't think a huge amount. I think a great website, yes, you need to put some time and effort into a website to start with. And then social media, obviously, to target a particular local area. And I think that could be done at relatively low cost and fairly quickly. It would all be very immediate. Once you've actually got a website up and running, then anyone coming to it, hopefully they'll be impressed enough to ring the phone and start your customer base rolling. The sixth point that I've got about adding value is how you can add value from your side of things. Obviously, you're bringing the solution to the customer is one part of the value, but also you can actually see the way that would evolve in the future. So as you become more expert and you become better entrenched in the business, then I think there's a whole series of skills and experience that you could actually add value to that solution. So you can very quickly soon build up the ability to recommend for different types of customers the different solutions that would suit them. And again, a great way of adding value for any business. The seventh point that I actually picked out that I think would highlight the potential progress for a business like that is the government subsidy. And I think there needs quite a lot of time spent on researching what the grants are, who's actually going to benefit from them, how it works. And the same with the approval process. If you want to be an approved installer and a legitimate long-term business, you're going to have to talk to the OLEV, which are the people that are actually running that approvals list, and make sure it's not going to be a 2-year process to actually get onto that list. You need to be able to move on to that fairly quickly. And again, similar to the discussions with the suppliers of the equipment, I think all of that could be done before you actually spend a penny on the websites and building the development of the business. You've got to negotiate that first, make sure that you understand exactly what you're getting into before you actually start spending money on the website and the business overall. So these aren't necessarily in any particular order, it's just basically as the thought process was going through, this is how I was actually thinking of how the business might develop in terms of the EV charge points. So it's really just to let your mind wander across those ideas and go through that evaluation and basically challenge the initial idea of whether it is really a good business. Do you really understand the opportunity? And just make sure that you're being realistic along the way, so that you can actually make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into, and make sure that it's going to be worth your while to do it. So with the EV charge point business, I could see that there's obviously a huge potential, and it would actually run right across the country. So there's a massive opportunity, and with steps along the way that you can actually scale that up. So you would obviously start with a local business, maybe subcontracting the installations, doing the sales work yourself, and then from there it would actually build as you add more into the sales team, starting recruiting your own installers, then building up the installation base so you could actually cover the whole of the UK by maybe by county or by region. So yeah, I think there's an obvious plan for how that business would develop. And I think the interesting thing from that business point of view is that with initial buzz about the marketing, it would almost become self-fulfilling. As you start to do more installations, then you've got more recommendations, more word of mouth, and the whole thing would actually feed into the sales process again. So I think for a relatively small initial investment, then you could actually build a serious sized business. Which is why I got so excited about the opportunity when I was thinking it through. So I suppose you might then wonder why I don't see that as my next business, the next business for me. But I think, again, this comes to the thought process. you have to then be realistic. Once you've actually run through the evaluation, challenging of the ideas, you then have to be realistic about whether it is something that you actually want to do. At my stage in life, I don't particularly want to employ lots of people. I'm not looking for a business that would build over maybe 20 or 30 years' time, for a career spanning business. I think there are opportunities for people like that, and if you're at the other end of the range, then I can't think of a better one at the moment for an industry to be involved with. And I think from my side of things, I weighed it up against the other thing that I was involved with, which is the e-learning. And for me, the e-learning is a more immediate return, more immediate business. And I think that's the reason that the EV charge point isn't actually for me. So if anybody out there wants to actually pick it up and take the idea, then I think run with it and just let me know how you get on. I hope it works as it should. So I hope that's been a useful insight really into the thought process of how entrepreneurs actually look at the world and how you actually maybe evaluate new ideas. If you actually follow that same sort of thought process, then I think there's plenty of opportunity in all of these businesses that I've actually highlighted. And it's interesting where the inspiration strikes from. If somebody actually gives you a nice sandwich or a piece of cake or something like that, then if you actually think, maybe like the majority of the population think, well, oh, that was a nice piece of cake, that's great. Or do you actually think, wow, that's a great piece of cake, I could build a business around that? Then I think once you actually get into that thought process and being open to those new ideas, then that's when you start to think like an entrepreneur. If you like what you've seen today, then make sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, or if you are subscribed but not hit the bell, make sure to click on the bell and you get notified of all the new videos as and when they come out. Equally, don't forget the comments. If there's anything you want to say, any new ideas you have for other things that I should be covering, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to share this video if there's anyone else that you think might be interested in receiving the information. Okay, thank you very much. I'll see you next time.